20.
Hey guys, welcome back to episode 31 of the 3rd and 20 Dynasty Podcast. I'm JT. We finally got the full crew of Frank, Jake, and Lounis here. We're middle of April. We're getting close to the draft. How is everyone today?
Good to be back.
Yeah, we missed you last week, Jake. And defending your Smith-Waddle switch-up.
We gotta talk about that.
I mean, listen, I was always on the fence between the two of them. I don't know. I just think Waddle fits the stereotypical more receiver one compared to Smith. But that's just stereotypes.
No, I agree with you. I'm just giving you shit. It's just funny to laugh at Frank now. Because now Frank's on an island.
Frank is on an island. He's all alone out there.
Yeah, I need to make a Wilson.
Alright, well, we've beaten that debate to the death. So we're going to move on to our news and notes. Not a lot to talk about this week, except for one big trade. Something that we all kind of saw coming, but we didn't know where he was going, what team was trading for him. But the Carolina Panthers went out and traded for Sam Darnold of the New York Jets. They gave up a 6th round this year, and then a 2nd and 4th next year. Kind of means that the Panthers probably aren't going to take a quarterback. What are your guys' thoughts on this trade? How does it affect Sam Darnold's value? What does it mean for the Panthers players going forward? Thoughts, opinions?
I really like this trade for Carolina. Obviously, I wanted them to take Trey Lance at 7. I thought that was a great fit for Trey Lance. Play with Christian McCaffrey, play with Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. I thought Matt Rule as the coach, I thought it was a great fit. But I think Darnold, it's similar. You know, he has a familiar face in Robbie Anderson, who was his favorite target in New York. He's got DJ Moore, who's probably the best receiver he's ever played with. And he's got Christian McCaffrey behind him with a coach that I really respect and I think he can do a lot with because, you know, he's used to these young quarterbacks coming from, a college system here. I think it's a really nice fit for Sam. I think if he doesn't succeed here, I think we all think that's the end just because of how much trouble he's had in New York. But overall, I think this is a great situation for Sam, and I would go out and buy him depending on what the price was.
Well, okay. Hold on. We'll stop right there. What is the price for Sam Darnold right now?
I think right now the hype kind of makes it a little bit too high. I was going to say in part of my congrats on anyone who bought low up to this point. I guess it depends on what the price is now. I don't really know what it is because now he has some hype around him.
Like what? Early, mid-second? I see, this is my thing with Sam Darnold is I don't think his price has necessarily jumped a ton. I think now what's happened is that you had the people that like Sam Darnold and weren't going to sell him for a third, and you had the people that wanted to buy Sam Darnold and only wanted to buy for a third, and now because of this hype, it's like, okay, now we'll actually meet in the middle at like that early mid second rounder, like 203, 204, probably somewhere around there, which is what I feel like the Sam Darnold owners wanted, unless you were really panicking. But at that point, it's like, is it even worth to sell for? It's kind of like Jameis Winston a while ago. Were you really going to sell Jameis Winston for that really late second, early third round pick? I don't even think you were getting offered a late second when he kind of went out of existence in the fantasy world. I think it's kind of now people are starting to meet in the middle because of the hype, and Sam Darnold owners weren't really looking to sell really low.
Yeah, so I think right now the asking price for Sam Darnold probably is an early second, like a top 3 or 4 picks in the second round. I just don't think many teams are going to meet that. It is interesting to think about it. Not that I'm not comparing the two in any way other than just age, but Sam Darnold is only like 9 months older than Mac Jones. I gotta look at it again. I think it's 9-10 months older than Mac Jones. Sam Darnold.
It's within a year because they're 23 and 22. Yeah,
which is crazy to think about when we're talking about how long Sam Darnold has been in the league for. I think they're, while kind of somewhat similar quarterbacks, I don't think they're that similar. But it is the question of then. So now we're talking super flex rookie drafts. Right around those kind of picks is where Mac Jones is going. So I'm pretty confident in what Frank would say about Mac Jones versus Sam Darnold. But would any of you take Sam Darnold over Mac Jones?
Are we assuming Mac Jones lands in San Francisco?
I think that's a tough
Because
assumption
that's
to
going to
make.
have an impact on me.
Let's
Because if
say
it's
let's say
Let's just
that
say without it, as a prospect, are you taking Sam Darnold or are you taking Mac Jones? No landing spot for Mac Jones.
I'm gonna take Darnold.
in Carolina, I think Darnold.
I'm gonna take Darnold.
wow. Okay,
With-
both. All right. Let me hear one of
If
your
you told
reasons
me for
first.
sure, if you told me for sure he's going to be in San Francisco, it becomes super tough. But like just no landing spots, and I'm looking what Joe Brady has done with quarterbacks and that offense with those weapons around him. And Sam Darnold's only less than a year older than him. It's close, but I'd probably lean Darnold. But again, if Mac Jones is in San Francisco, I'd have to reconsider that.
I also got to take into consideration here that, listen, Darnold was a top 3 pick in the NFL draft for a reason. Not saying that, all the rumors are out there that San Francisco is going to take Mac Jones at 3 also. But Darnold in his own right was a top pick for a reason. Everyone, he was a highly touted prospect. And the Jets really didn't do him any favors. I mean, the most they ever tried to do was they signed him an aging Le'Veon Bell and drafted Denzel Mims, who didn't play. Like, they never got any help. The offensive line was always iffy at best, and I think now you actually... And also, something no one's mentioned yet, Adam Gase just kills everyone's fantasy value. I don't know how that hasn't been brought up yet. Like, Tannehill, I saw a stat yesterday that Tannehill's QBR under Gase in Miami was in the 50s. Tannehill's QBR last year in Tennessee was in the 90s. It's absurd what happens to these players, especially with Tannehill now as the only quarterback we've really seen make the jump without Gase here. But everyone's fantasy value. Kenyon Drake went up. Devontae Parker. Preston Williams was playing really well before he got injured. There's a whole thing, and I want to see what Sam can do. I mean, I think whenever you have Christian McCaffrey, everyone's going to be paying attention to him in the backfield. It really takes a lot of pressure off him. When in New York, all the pressure was on him. He was forced to make all the throws and really had no help, and I didn't like it. I felt bad for him because he kind of got thrown under the bus. Obviously, the right move for the Jets moving forward is that their new GM can handpick his own quarterback. But I think it's a good restart here, and I would do it over Mac Jones, who I'm not sold on personally. I have him ranked, I think, my QB5, so I'd take the risk on Darnold here.
Are you two taking Mac Jones? I agree with everything Jake just said.
Yeah, give me Mac Jones. What about you, JT?
I know you're taking Mac Jones.
All right,
what about you,
so
JT?
Frank's definitely in the Mac Jones camp. I hate to be this guy, but so when I'm thinking about from the homer perspective of like the Patriots and who I would have rather wanted, I think I would have rather given up whatever like the Panthers gave up and got Sam Darnold rather than drafting Mac Jones with the first round pick. I truly believe that Sam Darnold would have been better on the Patriots than Mac Jones. But as far as like a dynasty perspective is considered, it's a lot tougher in that aspect. I think I lean Mac Jones, but just slightly there, because it's like we've seen from Sam Darnold not great things. Obviously, it's because he's on the Jets and with Adam Gase, but there's also blame for Sam Darnold there too. It wasn't like it was just the Jets' fault that he ended up not succeeding in the NFL. And
he's seeing ghosts out there.
He was seeing ghosts.
For real, though. For real. Like, it's not just Adam Gase. Adam Gase doesn't throw the ball. Sam Darnold throws the freaking ball.
Yeah. Also, the unknown of Mac Jones kind of intrigues me. Personally, I'm not too high of him as a prospect. He's my quarterback 5, I believe. Also, Jake. So, I do think this is a stacked quarterback class, though, and being the quarterback 5 isn't necessarily a terrible thing, especially when we're talking dynasty. But we've seen Sam Darnold. What we've seen hasn't been great. The intrigue of Mac Jones is there, especially if he ends up on a top team like the Broncos or like the 49ers getting picked at 3. If he's getting picked at 3, I'm definitely taking Mac Jones. But, yeah, I think we can move on from here, though, unless anyone else feels very
let me
strong.
say a quick spiel about Darnold, because I am someone who watched way too many Jets games on film with my Sam Darnold analysis that's actually on the channel. And I like Sam Darnold. I think he has talent. The Panthers were actually one of the teams that I thought Sam Darnold could get traded to if it weren't during the draft. But the thing that I think people are forgetting is that Sam Darnold is nowhere near a sure thing. I am still not out on the Panthers taking a quarterback. Sam Darnold right now is basically on a 1-year, show me what you got kind of deal. And if he plays like crap out there, there's no guarantee he's still on the Panthers.
They're apparently using his 5th-year option.
So, like, I do think it increases his perceived value, but, man, it's like, realistically, I think Mac Jones and Sam Darnold are equal level prospects. I like them both coming out. Sam Darnold, the problem for me, he has not improved on some of his weaknesses. When he rolls to the right, his ball placement is still dog shit. He still is struggling to see defenses and read the field. His footwork has gotten better. We've seen minimal improvements, but I'm not going to go out there and because I value Mac Jones as a late first-round pick. They both offer me no rushing upside. Why am I now going to value Sam Darnold as a first-round pick for everyone around him except for what I've seen on his tape?
He had that long run against the Broncos.
Honestly, Darnold's not a running QB, but he could have some. He's definitely way more athletic.
It doesn't. It negates in the long run.
Yeah,
though. It's not gonna.
He's not going to give you consistent rushing floor.
No, not
like
consistent.
in what we went over in the last episode. It's like freaking Kirk Cousins will give you some runs here and there. Like he'll get you 150 rushing yards on the season and like a touchdown. But that's not really moving the needle too much.
All right,
that's fair.
But this is a good place to move on to the next part of our intro segments, and that's the best quarterback landing spots for the incoming prospects. We've kind of got information that we know that quarterbacks are going to go 1, 2, 3. I mean, nothing's ever a given, but with San Francisco trading up, the Jets not willing to trade out of 2, it sounds like we're going to have something along the lines of Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and then is it Mac Jones? Is it Justin Fields? Is it Trey Lance at 3? So what we want to do next is, what are the best quarterback landing spots for these players? So, Lounis, you came up with the idea. What direction do you want to take this in?
I think for... I gotta think here.
I can start off if you need me to.
You go first. I have 2 in mind, so you go first, and I'll pick the one you don't choose.
All right, well, this is not going to be one of the more popular quarterback landing spots, and not necessarily for one of these high-end first-round prospects, but I think a quarterback landing spot, and this is going to be a little homer of me, is Pittsburgh. If
I
Kellen
knew you were
Mond,
going to say that.
Yeah, but listen,
I mean,
you can
they
say
are.
that, but like, if someone like Kellen Mond can come into Pittsburgh, this is an organization that has much more patience than a lot of other teams do. And I think that really helps developing prospects. You look at teams that can develop players. Pittsburgh has been one of the best in a team that you look at their draft success, and it's like, well, they barely ever sign free agents, and they're always above 500. That's because they draft and develop players well. The only other landing spot for me that really rivals that, and this may be even better, is New Orleans. Because New Orleans is another team that staff, especially offensively, they develop the hell out of players. And it's insanely quarterback friendly with how creative Sean Payton is with their run and screen game. So, for me, young quarterback that I want to hold into the future for 3, 4+ seasons in a Dynasty League, it's those 2 teams I want him to go to.
That's fair. I think I've decided on mine because I was between 2 teams, and if neither of you 2 say it, I'll bring it up at the end, the one I don't choose. I'm going to go with New England for one reason specifically, being that they have Josh McDaniels as their offensive coordinator. I think he's one of the best offensive coordinators in the NFL, specifically at tailoring the offense towards specific quarterback strengths. Like we saw what he did for Tebow years back in Denver, how they were able to make the playoffs with someone who couldn't really throw. What he's done with Brady, and then how he changed up the entire offense for Cam. I think he would help and just make this offense really easy for whatever rookie QB. They wouldn't have a whole ton of pressure. Like, they're going to run the ball a ton. And nothing like too crazy with the pass concepts. They've got 2 safety net tight ends. I think I think New England would be like if they traded up for Justin Fields, I would feel really good about Justin Fields in New England.
Okay. So I'm operating under the assumption that the 49ers are doing smoke screens and that they're actually taking Justin Fields at 3. So that means that you got Trey Lance and Mac Jones on the board, and kind of in a surprise pick where I think the best landing spot for Trey Lance is none other than the Detroit Lions. I think it's a great place.
You took mine.
Thanks.
Damn, you guys didn't say the other one I was
We
thinking.
got two people saying the Lions. You really believe in the dude that much?
How do you not
dude?
believe in the dude?
How do you not? He's gonna crack some kneecaps out here.
I think it's a perfect scenario where they're a team that has a lot of draft picks coming up, and when you have a young quarterback team, like you can pay free agents more to come there because you don't have that huge player on a deal, and he's got someone to sit behind for a little bit too. And Jared Goff, who's he brought the Rams to the Super Bowl, not based on his skill alone, but like he's a competent enough a quarterback where you could have him in there for a while and let Trey Lance learn and get the offense down, actually become more developed. Because we've talked about it before, Trey Lance really is kind of a raw prospect, but he's got a lot of potential to be an elite talent. So if you let him learn, sit behind Jared Goff, you let the Lions actually accumulate talent, which hopefully they do. They do have the new the guy from the Rams. I think his last name's Holmes. He was the front office guy. I think it's a definite possibility that Trey Lance does go to the Lions. I think that would be a great spot for him to learn and grow as a quarterback.
Wait, I want to say one thing, because I actually completely agree with that. For one reason. I was watching some Trey Lance tape a couple of days ago, just to kind of re-go over the quarterbacks, make sure I'm not missing anything. And there was a play where Trey Lance trucked the crap out of a corner. I will post it on the 3rd and 20 Twitter, at 3rd and 20 _, if you're interested.
He's strong.
That fits the dude. That fits the dude. We're taking kneecaps, cracking skulls, baby. They're 100% they're drafting Trey Lance. No doubt in my mind.
I'm so surprised no one said the other team I was thinking besides New England that realistically can get one of those top ones.
Hold on. I mean, I'm gonna say one. I think it's Atlanta. I think Atlanta's another spot that it's a good landing spot for a quarterback. Similar to what
it's a very good one.
I mean, you have weapons in an aging Julio Jones, obviously, but he's still Julio Jones. You have Calvin Ridley. I mean, you got a pretty decent offensive line in front of him. And you would learn behind Matty Ice for a year or two, and I think it's a really nice place for maybe not to take a guy at 4, but if they took one with their second round pick, high in the second round, I think that's a nice spot just to sit behind and have some weapons and learn behind a guy that's won an MVP before. So overall, I think that's not a bad spot. I mean, my number one spot was Detroit, like JH already said, but I think Atlanta's not a bad one either.
Arthur Smith, too. Surprised no one said Washington.
Oh, you were thinking Washington.
They already have their quarterback.
They've got their
Fitzpatrick?
Multiple quarterbacks. Heineke, Fitzpatrick.
They've got Taylor Heineke. He's the future. I say it every episode.
I'm surprised because I like their coach. I thought they made out pretty well with the quarterbacks they had last year. They have weapons. Gibson, McLaurin, Curtis Samuel. I thought that was a pretty interesting one. I was between that and New England the entire time.
No one did say the Broncos, though. And they're a definite team that has potential to pick up someone in the draft.
I like their weapons.
When have the Broncos drafted a good quarterback again?
Paxton Lynch.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. But like
in the past 10 years, like
they are a team that exists and are 50-50 shot that they take a quarterback in that first round. So
it's like a 3-year cycle. It's like we take quarterback, it doesn't work. We get someone else that's completely random. Then we take quarterback 3 years later. It doesn't work. Now it's like, okay, we're getting there. Drew Lock was what? It was 3 years ago, right? It was 3. This is the year of the cycle.
They're forever cursed at the QB position for robbing Brock Osweiler of his playoff run and putting in like washed up Peyton.
All right, my one thing before we move on is if a quarterback does end up on Denver, does he immediately drop in your rankings? Like,
It doesn't drop.
No,
Okay.
he doesn't
I like their
drop.
weapons. I just don't like their coaching staff right now.
What you got against Vic Fangio?
I don't have it. I just want everyone here didn't
Be
said
an
it wasn't a
offensive
great
coach?
landing spot. So I wanted to gauge the room on if we're just
Honestly, he
completely
might
out on
drop.
Denver.
Actually, he might drop.
There's Frank.
I mean, I think it depends
Like,
on where
honestly
the,
though, like
it depends on where the other quarterbacks go. That's what's going to happen. It depends on.
Well, we have a strong inclination that 3 of them are going top 3 with Jaguars, Jets, 49ers. So then there's only one other guy that could go anywhere. Well, unless you're talking to Frank, and then there's Kellen Mond also. But like, there's only a couple other guys there that would probably jump them. You know.
That fourth pick looks like it's going to be traded.
I don't know.
You think that the
I don't know
Falcons
about
trade the
that.
4th pick?
The report just came out today that they're fielding offers and getting a lot of calls.
Okay, every single team to ever pick in the top 5 fields offers.
If I'm taking a QB there for my franchise, I'm not fielding too many offers.
Yeah,
Were the
but
Jets
like
fielding
every team
offers
that's
at 2?
not.
I mean,
there
they
probably
should.
have been
Any team
reports.
should, depending on. What
I mean, you at least
got to
see what people are offering, right? Like you can't just be like,
Yeah, but
there's a price for everything.
It kind of hinted that it was being shopped. I don't know. So
Dude, if
that's
I'm
my
the
guess.
Falcons,
That's my
that is
guess.
such a throw because I am taking Kyle Pitts. I am taking Kyle Pitts and saying, we didn't fuck this one up. You can make fun of us for all the years past, but there is no freaking way you can say that we fucked this one up.
Every
you get a haul,
single
though.
every single offensive player for the Atlanta Falcons was a first-round pick.
That's true.
Every starter,
That's true.
every starter for the Atlanta Falcons
That's actually crazy.
offense was a first-round pick.
All right.
Yeah, and you can add Kyle Pitts, a man amongst boys.
What are you
See, if
talking
I'm
about? They
Atlanta-
already have Hayden Hurst, former first-round pick.
And if I'm Atlanta and I love Kyle Pitts, I'm either taking a QB at 4. If I'm not taking a QB, I'm trading back. Because you're
Ah,
going to
okay.
get a shit ton. You're
Wait,
going to
the
get a ton of
biggest
value.
Florida homer in this chat is saying that you will gladly pass up on the best tight end prospect in
Hold on, Lounis. I
like
got
all
this.
time.
Can Kyle Pitts play defense? Because that's what the Falcons
Yes.
desperately need.
You don't think, dude,
Kyle
put
Pitts play both
yo.
ways.
Put him at like middle linebacker.
Honestly.
Put him at linebacker. No one's
What about
talking
edge rusher, dude? He's got those long ass arms. He just long arm you.
All right, this is the off the rails part of the segment that we're in. So I'll just try and steer us back on. We kind of just wound Frank up to set him off again, because we're gonna
Kyle
move on
Pitts in the
right
game
now.
chancellor role.
We're gonna move on right now to Frank did a lot of research recently, and he dove into the value of the top picks. So, like I just alluded to, Frank, we wound you up. Let's just let you roll.
All right. Value of top picks. So what I did to try and value some of these top picks, I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad idea. We're going to eventually kind of equate the top 5 picks to a player. We're going to try and do that. But I think the best way to do that was to look at startup drafts and where they're going. So I looked at recent startup drafts. I put a post in r/Dynasty saying, hey, if anyone's kind enough, come forward with startup drafts. If one of you is for some reason watching this podcast, I really appreciate you coming forward. That is great. I really love the people that do that. But with that being said, taking out the outliers, because there was one draft where the first pick in the rookie draft went at 24, which is just a little bit ridiculous compared to all the other drafts. First overall pick, Trevor Lawrence, is going at an average of 8.6. I rounded down for every pick, but whether you round down or round up, around pick 8, 9. So some of the guys that were taken right around him, Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, McCaffrey, Dak Prescott. So kind of in that second tier of quarterbacks and tier 1 of receivers and running backs. Then we go to pick 2. It drops about 10 picks to the 18th pick, 19th pick in the draft, which is the 6th pick in the second round. To me, that is a little bit expensive comparing it to previous years. I think last year, Jonathan Taylor was going in the second half of the second round around Nick Chubb, a little bit behind Nick Chubb at like 208, 209, 210. So it is a little bit expensive, these 2 picks. But now if we go into picks 3, 4, and 5, it is pretty crazy. So they were going at an average of 301, 310, and 403 respectively for 3, 4, and 5. But the standard deviation is 8 to 10 picks on these rookie picks. So they are going all over the place. just to give you some names of where people are, one is getting picked around DK Metcalf. The next is going around Joe Mixon and Zeke, in depending on which draft you look at. And that's for pick 3. There were some drafts where you had pick 5 in the rookie draft, which I think is almost just as good as picks 4 and 3. It's almost a tough decision. You have them going 2 rounds later, a full round later than 4 and 3. So it's a little bit ridiculous. Now, I'm going to throw this to you guys because I want to take this away from the startup talk and more towards if you had to do a 1-for-1 trade with one of these rookie picks, what do you look at? Let's start off with pick 1. What would you give up in a 1-for-1 trade for 101? You are trading for 101. What is the lowest player on the board? Any player you could pick.
Of the guys that you listed, or what?
Anyone in the draft. What is okay? I'm gonna go through what is the player that is the lowest on my startup board that I would just say, hey, I would want Trevor Lawrence, basically.
Any of the running backs?
I would trade Dak or Saquon for 101.
Yeah,
I think I would trade either of those two guys.
I'm in the running back.
So would you say that average, the market, let's just say the market value for Trevor Lawrence, pick 101, is about the 9th or 8th best player in fantasy football?
Here's the tricky part with it. Because
underpriced, good price?
The tricky part with it is, I don't know if I can say that for every single year that 101 should be pick 8 or 9 in the first round. But for this year, with a quarterback as good as Trevor Lawrence, which doesn't usually happen, I think that's accurate. I can see in future years it being maybe 11 or 12. But for Trevor Lawrence right now this year, yeah, I'd say around pick 8 in the startup. Because how many QBs are you taking over him?
Yeah, I mean, I typically agree with what you guys are saying. I think this year it's a little higher than normal just because we do have a generational quarterback prospect at the top of this draft. So especially in Superflex leagues, that's going to astronomically boost the value of that pick just because, it's between the hype and if you're picking at 101, your team's probably not very good unless you somehow miraculously traded for the first pick and you're a contender. You're going to want to just probably roll the dice on this pick. So you're probably going to only sell that for another elite quarterback. I think Dak's a guy that I would look at. For that 101 pick, if I had it, I don't think I could possibly sell it for a running back just because their window to compete with a running back is not very large.
Is there anyone trading Herbert for 101? I'm not.
No shot.
No shot. After what he did last year, no shot.
Joe Burrow, you guys are trading for 101?
100%.
Yeah.
Not even thinking.
Yeah. Just because think about
Russell Wilson?
Russell Wilson, that's a good question.
I do.
That's a tough one.
As a Russell Wilson owner, it's real close. Just because.
That's tough.
I don't think the person with 101 would take Russell Wilson.
That's what I was just about to say. I don't think 101's doing it
because
it's just what about if you had to choose between the two in a startup draft?
If on a startup draft, pick 8, Russell Wilson and Trevor Lawrence are both on the board.
Right.
I'm taking Trevor Lawrence. Yeah.
It's the longevity effect. I mean, Russ is 32. Not that that's old for quarterbacks, but Trevor Lawrence is 22.
All right. Well, I'm taking Russell Wilson.
For me, it's so close. I think I just lean Trevor by a little bit, but God, I feel just because Russell Wilson, he's still going to be good for another 8 years.
Okay, how about these two quarterbacks too? Because I think we're almost in consensus that there's not a running back or receiver or tight end that we would trade 1-for-1 for Trevor Lawrence. So Trevor Lawrence is above all those guys.
Yeah.
So Russell Wilson, listen, I'm higher on Russell Wilson than consensus, so I'll give you that. Now let's start moving up the consensus board. Dak Prescott and Lamar Jackson. What are we thinking about those two guys?
Dak Prescott, I would. Lamar, just because of his rushing.
When you say you would, what do you mean? You would take Trevor Lawrence over those guys?
Lamar in a startup draft, yeah.
Yeah, just in a blank universe, who do you value more? Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence. Almost just rank them. Would you take Trevor Lawrence over one of those two guys?
Dak, 101, Lamar.
Really? So you're higher on Dak than you are Lamar, and you're higher than Dak than you are Trevor. Interesting. Well, the rushing floor of Lamar, it is just that
It's tough.
his top.
I think that's the reason I'd lean Lamar. Is the guy's already
Yeah.
won an MVP and his
Yeah.
rushing is so ridiculous.
His top receiver this entire time has been Hollywood Brown too. Like,
low-key, Dak's rushing gets underrated. The dude had like 5 rushing touchdowns in like 5 games.
It does get underrated, but I want to see how he runs now after that injury.
Very fair point, but I'm just saying, prior to the injury, his rushing.
Prior to the injury,
gets
his rushing was
very underrated.
I don't think
You'd always have like 5 rushing touchdowns every year.
I don't think I'm taking Trevor Lawrence over either guy. I think I'm sticking him right behind the two because we know what the other two are. We know the other two are great QB1s who have, even with Lamar potentially getting injured, like they're still that long upside that you expect. We don't still know what Trevor Lawrence is technically, but I'm willing to gamble on him over Joe Burrow. And while it's close with Russell Wilson, I'm still willing to gamble on that too.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, JT, that mainly in startup drafts, I'm a little bit more conservative with the guys I like to take. I kind of just like to take guys that I know are good and don't worry as much about longevity. But that's a different story. I think he's right around there, around the Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson conversation. Let's move on to 102. 102, once again to reiterate, average pick is around 18 to 20 in a startup draft, so that's right smack dab in the middle of the second round. So most of the top-end quarterbacks are going to be off the board, and that's why I think this pick 2 is carrying a ton of value, is that a lot of people are seeing Justin Fields. He seems to be the consensus number 2 overall pick in these startup drafts. I wouldn't be surprised if come draft day, Zach Wilson, he's the second quarterback off the board. If he's in that conversation too for around like that mid to late second round, early third round in startup draft. So, question here is we're definitely taking some running backs and probably a receiver over 102. Let's just take the ones that we would rather have over 102. So who is that? Saquon Barkley. We're all in consensus there. We'd rather have Saquon than 102.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey as well.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have Christian McCaffrey over Saquon.
Jonathan Taylor.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. What about Nick Chubb?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I think it's close, but I might
take
Chubb.
102. If it's is this a super flex? You're getting a
Yeah,
good rookie
super flex
quarterback.
102.
Your choice of Wilson, Fields, Lance, Mac Jones. I think I would take 102.
Okay, so now we're starting to develop a little bit of a gap. Okay, how about any tight end in fantasy football not named Kyle Pitts?
102.
Give me 102. Yeah.
Are there any other running backs that we're taking over?
Who do we consider like the top 3 receivers? Are you guys taking
Dalvin?
AJ Brown or 102?
AJ Brown. I'm taking AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson, Cam Akers, DeAndre Swift.
So you're taking all these guys.
Yeah,
I'm not
with
taking
J-
DeAndre
I'm with-
Swift over
I'm
102.
with JT on this one.
I'm not taking
DeAndre
Swift.
but the other guys. I'll
The
take
DeAndre
Akers.
Swift hate in this podcast is
The
absurd.
dude's
It's
done
just he's not
nothing.
102.
He's
He's
done
not
nothing.
102.
I am taking 102 over Akers, Swift, Gibson, all these dudes.
Gibson's where I draw the line.
Except for
I would take 102 over Swift and Gibson. Akers is close.
Jonathan Taylor and Dobbins are the only ones I'm thinking about.
The
Yeah.
the line in the sand where I am is like Antonio Gibson, thinking about wide receivers like a Calvin Ridley.
What about DK?
I definitely have DK over 102. DK,
So,
AJ
alright.
Brown, and Justin Jefferson.
Let's
I have
pick
over
let's pick
102.
one player that's not a rookie to represent 102. What is that player?
Like, you mean just a 1-for-1 value?
Yeah, 1-for-1 value. Where is it at?
To me, it's Cam Akers.
You think Cam Akers?
No,
Yeah.
I take Akers.
I have Swift right above Akers, and that's like right where the line is right at the Akers line.
I think Akers is pretty close.
I can agree with that with Akers' perceived value. I'd much rather have 102, but Akers' perceived value is very high. So I think it's right around there. Because you have to remember, like, dude, this is a really good quarterback or Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts. So it's like top quality prospects.
Would you guys rather have, real quick, would you guys rather have, before Frank lets us compare the players, Burrow or 102?
102.
Burrow.
Yeah, no, 102.
Because I was going to say, is Burrow
Really?
possibly someone we could use as a line?
I think Burrow's a better line than Akers.
Wow, wait. So you guys would all rather have 102 than Joe Burrow?
Yes.
Yeah, and there's one guy
Yeah.
I'd rather have over Burrow with no questions at all. And that man is Kyle Pitts.
Oh my God.
I'm sold, dude. You can scoff. This is the reason why I love Kyle Pitts. Real quick story. Just think of it. If you were taking any player to draft and hold until they retire, there are two guys that are better than anyone else. It's Trevor Lawrence and Kyle Pitts. These are the only two guys. Jamar Chase is close. But listen, if I take Kyle Pitts at 102, I'm like, you can make fun of me all you want. But guess what? I just got a sick tight end that I am holding on to for his entire career and not thinking about it.
I agree in that regard, but there's a cap on the tight end. If you're not in tight end premium, obviously it doesn't make sense. If you're in tight end premium, there's a cap on what the player is valued at.
There is not.
Okay, I was assuming tight
There's
end
not.
premium.
We've seen Gronk get drafted in the first round before, and how's that worked out? He doesn't win you fantasy leagues. Like, Gronk getting drafted in the first round.
Do you know what wide
Pitts'
receiver?
potential at tight end is kind of, there's no ceiling. Go ahead,
Do you know
Jake.
how many wide receivers finished ahead of Travis Kelce last year?
I think he would have been like wide receiver 10, right?
Nope, he was wide receiver number 1. He was the best pass catcher in all of fantasy football.
Hold on, let's get back on track, though. Let's get back on track.
That's
Let's get
actually
back
a good
on
point.
track.
Okay, hold on.
He was the
Burrow
best
is the
pass
line for
catcher
102.
in all of fantasy football. Better than Devontae Adams, but
Okay.
better than Justin
hold on,
Jefferson,
Frank,
better
Frank,
than
one
anyone else.
Oh my
right,
God!
one
Can we
second,
just
one
finish
second.
this and then
Jake's
start debating
spin.
it later?
1 second, Frank.
I'm
One
with you,
second,
Jake.
Frank. That's a great point, Jake. Who's trading Justin Jefferson straight up for Travis Kelce?
Well, that's
But what
just
if
a
I
straight up
told you-
age factor. I'm just saying, Travis
Who's
Kelce has
trading-
done this for the past 7 years. He's
What if I
been
told you it was-
amazing. He's a beast.
What if I told
And
you it was
never get the
20-year-old
top
Travis
receiver for
Kelce?
Travis Kelce. You never get the value, though. That's what I'm saying. Even if he was doing this 5 years ago, you're still not getting... 5 years ago, would someone have traded DeAndre Hopkins for Travis Kelce straight up? No, they wouldn't have. Would someone have traded Julio Jones for Travis Kelce straight up? No. So there's just that cap there, that even if he's by far and away the best tight end, you're still
Yeah,
not
but
getting
Pitts
that
is
same value.
Pitts is
Okay,
20.
time out. Regardless of
I get that,
who would
Louis.
who would trade what for who, I don't give a fuck. You know what happens is he gets me
Tell him,
fucking
Jake.
points every fucking week.
Tell him.
and I'm starting a wide receiver 1 in my tight end spot every fucking week. It's
Tell
such an
him.
advantage. It's ridiculous.
Spit.
You could, if this is a big if Kyle Pitts turns into what Travis Kelce has been the past 7 years, it's a fucking steal. That's the simple answer.
Now we're banking on Kyle Pitts turning into the best tight end that we've seen since Gronk, and
He's tested better.
Just those two.
He's tested
but if
better.
we're gonna
He's
bet
run
on
better.
anyone to
He
be
is
the
better
best in that position,
shot.
I was going to say, if I'm going to bet on anyone to do it,
You guys are making me look like a Kyle Pitts hater. I was trying to trade
You
up
are.
to go
You're a
get
Florida
Kyle Pitts.
hater.
I was trying to trade up to get Kyle Pitts. I was trying to trade up to get Kyle Pitts. I don't think it's happening. I don't think I'm going to be able to get Kyle Pitts. But we're just talking in a fantasy land now where we're banking on this guy being the greatest player that we've ever seen. I get that he's a great prospect. I agree. I love him as a prospect. But we're trading all this stuff for Kyle Pitts is kind of absurd because you're giving up so much value for something that you might happen. That might happen.
Can we get back to the segment
all right,
at hand,
go
please?
ahead, Frank.
103. So we've drawn the line at 102 at Joe Burrow. We've all consensus decided that 102 is worth a singular Joseph Burrow. 103. So 103, just to reiterate again if you forgot, average pick 25.5, 301. So we go early third from mid-second, probably like a good 5 to 6 picks behind. So not very far behind. Some guys taken around him. This is kind of where we start getting into the receivers, right? You know, the D-Hop, the DK Metcalf. This is where you start seeing like George Kittle, tight end 1, come off the board. And then, just the running back who falls. Who are we placing the 103 price tag on? Anyone got an idea?
I like Metcalf D-Hop range in there that,
Metcalf is a good. Metcalf's a good.
I was taking Metcalf over 102, so I guess I'm in my own space on that one.
How about George Kittle? George Kittle 103. What are we taking?
Probably 103. Yeah.
103.
Okay, so
I think Metcalf. I think Metcalf for Justin Jefferson is kind of close.
What about J.K. Dobbins?
I mean, I had him with 102.
Dobbins.
I would have
Yeah, I'd have Dobbins. My issue with this though is I place
Dobbins
a lot higher
103 isn't
value.
bad to me.
I place a lot higher value on 102 than I do 103 just because I really like Justin Fields and I'm beginning to cool off on Zach Wilson. So there's a big discrepancy there. Then it could be Jamar Chase instead, but like
I was gonna say 103. I'm comparing these players to my selection of either Wilson, Pitts, and Chase. I'd have the choice on one of those three.
Pitts is also there. It's just it's definitely another. It's a divot to me. Like
how about Stephon Diggs?
No, 103.
I'll take 103.
Y'all hate him, but like...
Who do we place this pick at then?
If you got offered 103 for Stephon Diggs, you're saying no?
Yeah, you're taking
I
that.
might.
You're taking that in a heartbeat. Get out of here.
Come on, you're taking 103 for Diggs.
You don't think Jamar Chase at 103 would be a better prospect than Stephon Diggs? Like a better future value? I just... You're banking on one... What's up?
I was going to say,
it depends on where... It depends on where he goes. Like, also, like, it depends on a lot of shit here. Like, you know what you're getting with Stephon Diggs. He's going to put up 1,000 yards, and he's playing with Josh Allen. He's going to put up a lot of fucking points. Like, I understand he's 27, and I understand that, but, like, I don't think it's a no-brainer. Like, yeah, it's definitely something, like I said, it's very close, but I don't think it's a no-brainer by any sense.
Okay, how about this? What about, I'm going to mention two names. Calvin Ridley, Antonio Gibson.
I take 103 pretty easily over both of those.
I don't think you can take 103 easy. I mean, mate, I think
Calvin Ridley, Stephon Diggs are in the same boat.
If I have my choice of one of those other three quarterbacks or Jamar Chase versus Calvin Ridley, I'm picking the rookies.
Gibson too, I call the 103 line. He's the 103 line for me.
Gibson?
I'm down to make Gibson the 103.
Wait,
I think it's close.
So
I think I'd rather have 103 over Gibson.
No. Don't let this go. So you're saying Antonio Gibson is more valuable than Stephon Diggs? You're on crack.
What like?
I didn't say Gibson. I'd rather have 103 than Gibson. Also, G. I'm being consistent with it.
No,
I'm fine with. It's like that.
What's wrong with valuing Antonio Gibson over Stephon Diggs? A 22-year-old running back over a 27-year-old wide receiver.
Because that puts them in about the same amount of years until you want to get rid of them.
But
that's exactly the same thing.
But the premium of the young running back is a lot better than the premium of the peaking wide receiver.
They're both in their prime. You have a running back in a prime and a receiver in their prime.
Yes,
and one was receiver. One was receiver 2. One was running back 15. What the fuck is going on?
With the picks, it's just about the values of the players. Like we're just arguing about the players, not the picks.
I think this is entertaining.
Yeah, Antonio Gibson was running back 12, I believe, in his rookie year.
All right, how about Terry McLaurin? Terry McLaurin or 103?
103.
For fun,
I'd rather have Jamar Chase than Terry McLaurin.
Just for shits and gigs here, right? Whatever. Either way, Diggs was receiver 2. What's your point? Keep Trade Cut has 103 valued less than Diggs, so Diggs is more valuable than 103. They put the line at roughly Calvin Ridley, Antonio Gibson. So we were not too far off, but I was right just saying it because Diggs is more valuable.
I just had a personal preference of Antonio Gibson. What's the difference between Antonio Gibson...
Come on. 104.
I actually kind of want to see it.
What is the difference between Antonio Gibson and Stephon Diggs? What's the difference, Jake? Keep Trade Cut.
What's the difference?
Keep Trade Cut. What's the difference?
Okay,
look it up right now.
Okay.
I bet it's nothing. I bet they're probably within 500 points on Keep Trade Cut within each other, which is like the difference of maybe like a third round pick. You have to give up like a third round pick for them to equal each other.
What is it? What is it, Jake?
What is it, Jake? What is it, Jake?
The difference is your boy, Jacoby Myers.
So it's like a third. It's like an early third-round pick.
It's like a third.
And to me, I'd rather just have the young running back. But whatever. You said you were talking like I was on drugs. It's
You are. You are.
All right, Frank.
You
All
are.
right,
Back
because
on.
this
Back
segment
on.
is an
Back on.
absolute crapshoot, we're battling 104 and 105 the same because I'm tired of hearing Jake and JT butt heads about things that aren't relevant to valuing the picks. So 103, Antonio Gibson.
This has been one of our best segments, I think.
104,
I'm with Lounis
105.
on
What are
this.
we thinking?
104 or 105. So what? That's in the range of the
That's
QB
Jamar
4 or
Chase,
5.
Pitts, Trey
Javonte, whoever you have at RB1 in this draft. We have Javonte Williams, but whoever's your RB1.
So in startup drafts, you're getting this pick at around
Maybe
late
Pitts.
third round, early fourth round. So like guys going on there on keep trade cut would be like Aaron Jones, D Hop, Travis Kelce, Terry McLaurin, T Higgins, somewhere around there. Any of those?
All right.
What about T Higgins? That's interesting.
I really like T. Higgins. T. Higgins is like equal to 104 for me.
T. Higgins is close. I'd rather have 104 than T. Higgins. T. Higgins and 105 for me is super.
So see,
That's
Terry,
the one that's tough.
Terry McLaurin's the interesting one, right? Because I'd rather have 104 than Terry McLaurin, but I'd rather have Terry McLaurin than 105. If
I don't know. I think T. Higgins isn't worth more than like 108.
I'm not going to butt heads with you again, Jake. I'm going to lay off it.
I'm actually kind of
What
closer
about
towards
Calvin
Jake's
Ridley?
side. I'd
Dude,
probably have T. Higgins around like
if
107.
you're saying you have T. Higgins at 104, that means you're likely to have one of the top three, or one of the whoever your quarterback 3 is, or Pitts, or Chase, or any of your running backs. I don't know. I'm taking that pick over by
Yeah,
one
104 is
shot.
for
I
sure.
just-
over
And then I
T.
take-
Higgins.
T. Higgins
What
is an
about
alpha
Calvin
wide
Ridley?
receiver one, in my opinion. I have T. Higgins like right ranked with Calvin Ridley. So they're both
That's
right
very.
there.
So,
I'm
I
still
think
taking
Calvin
104 over
Ridley's
Ridley
the
also.
line. I would rather have
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley. It honestly depends on who's on the board.
Well, because no,
I
Jake brought
like
up a
that
good point.
one.
It's either gonna be it's either gonna be one of these guys at 104, either your QB3, or if it's not, if they're off, Pitts may be on there. If they're both off, then Chase is on the board, and likely either way, you're gonna have your top running back on the board. So one of those people is gonna be there, along with your top running back.
If you guys want like a viewpoint into how I'm looking at this, right? I have a cluster of wide receivers right there. That's like Terry McLaurin, Calvin Ridley, DJ Moore, and T. Higgins. And they're all just grouped together, and I just think they haven't really separated each other from one another. And that group, that just cluster, is also right there on top of 104, 105. Because I'm assuming right around there is going to be Jamar Chase. Although I don't like Devontae Smith, I bet people do have Devontae Smith right there, and that's probably what they're expecting. That player
No,
to end up being.
Devontae Smith right now is like his ADP is around like 108, 109.
Oh, people are starting to wake up. They're coming to the dark side of me, Lounis, and I guess now Jake.
So the other question is, and I'm going to start this off.
I'm
First off,
not that far, Jake.
I think that right now, 104 and 105 are definitely worth their price. You know, you look at these picks compared to previous drafts, these are easy, like, first, second, third overall picks last year, years before, easily. So, especially in startups, if you're one of these guys that's able to nab pick 4, 5, 6, 7, even maybe 8 and 9, but like more specifically 4 and 5 in the late third, where this ADP is at, and beyond, like for some of these other picks into the 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, man, it is looking like really good value picks here for the prospects that are going to be on the board.
I was going to say, I think besides like 101, 104 is kind of like the best pick to me to have in this draft. Like if I owned 102, I would trade back with 104, pick up an extra asset. And at 104, like you mentioned, you're going to have your third QB or Pitts or Chase, or your best running back is going to be like, and you get that asset for trading 2 spots back. That'd be my move. I think that's like kind of the sweet spot of the first round.
I mean, I think that I like that in terms of just straight up value. But I think if you need the quarterback sitting at pick 2 is probably your best bet here.
Yeah, I'm just one pick away from you, Lounis. I like pick 102 a lot more. I think pick 103, I'd be willing to move back to 105. So just, taking both of them, those kind of picks away. Because then, I'm getting the quarterback that I'm colder off with, because I'm assuming Fields is going 102. And I'm picking up value, and I'm still getting the likes of Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, Javonte Williams, Trey Lance, that kind of zone. And that's a great spot to be in, I think, 105.
All right, well, that should do it for this. For the most part.
Frank's like, thank God we finally got through this without them
I'm down to debate.
We
should just debate the topic at hand?
We're gonna make the entire episode next week about Stephon Diggs versus Antonio Gibson. It's gonna be 90 minutes of that.
There were more important debates to be had, Frank. I was going to back for your guy in our league. He's your guy in our league.
You know what I'm doing right now? I'm putting in our fantasy group chat a poll real quick of Stephon Diggs or Antonio Gibson.
No. Listen here.
I don't know if our group chat
you
is
know
the
who we
best
play
place
with
to
here. You
Yeah,
know who we play
with.
This isn't.
All right, we're good to move
Jake
on
might
now?
be at a bias disadvantage.
Let's move on. All right, so we're going to get into our next segment of which players we think are done. And that just means, who are these aging guys that, might still have value right now, but don't necessarily have a team or can easily get replaced through the draft? Who are people that we're just selling for literally anything because we just know their value is going to be basically the floor starting up? So does anyone want to start us off?
How many are we saying to start? Do you want me to say 2 or 1?
Just one each.
Just that one? James Conner.
I mean, he's not signed yet, so yeah.
For a reason. I don't know. For him, if someone offered me the last pick of the 3rd round for James Conner, I'm saying yeah. I'd probably say yeah, an early 4th.
I mean, I think at that point you might as well just take the Devontae Freeman route and just be like, all right, I'm not signing. Whenever a running back inevitably goes down,
that could happen.
I'll fill in, and then I'll be a viable fantasy back for a few weeks, and then I can maybe trade him for something better than that.
Jake, what's the lowest you would trade draft pick wise James Conner for? 312, 405, what? 36?
Like I said, it's not even worth it. I mean, if I'm sitting on draft night and pick 3-7 comes around and someone fell that I'm really interested in, I'd say, yeah, sure, fine. 3-8, same shit. It just really depends on the board. I just think it's more of a draft night move to move something for that low of a price, because otherwise you're just taking a dart throw that your guy's going to fall, and that's not something I'm willing to do. I just think it's better to play it out, especially with a guy of James Conner. We've seen he's pretty good. He's had multiple 1,000-yard seasons, I believe. If not, they were very close to that. And he'll fill in. Running backs go down every single year. He'll fill in, and especially for me as a contender, there's no real reason to do it. To get a pick that I'm probably not going to even roster.
That's fair.
All right. I'll throw out my guy here. This is someone, if you've been listening to a podcast for a little while now, not that we've been going around for that long, but back before the season last year, Jake told you guys to go out and buy AJ Green, which caused our viewer Timmy to lose an arm.
Where'd he sign again? Didn't he go to Arizona?
Yeah, he went to Arizona.
I don't think it's bad.
Okay.
Perfect, Lounis. No, Lounis, you're the guy I want. 1 second, Jake, right? Because he's going to get that hype. He's going to get that hype of, he's on Arizona now. He's with Kyler Murray. Larry Fitzgerald might be retiring.
I like the fit.
I think he's done.
I think it's interesting.
I think he's done. I'm just willing to sell for whatever price. If anyone wants to come and get AJ Green off my roster, go ahead, because he's in what should be his last year or so, and I don't think he'll actually be that productive.
He had 100 targets last year.
And he didn't do a whole lot with them.
I mean, no, but...
Did he actually?
Yeah, that's the thing.
I believe, yeah.
I was actually looking that up because when I saw all the rumors about the Bengals with Jamar Chase, everyone's thinking, how's that going to affect Higgins and Boyd? And then someone brought up the point, there's still a lot of empty targets to be carried on to next year. AJ Green had 102. So I was like, oh shit, okay, so that could work.
I didn't realize he had that many still.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and I don't even think he's getting near 100 on the Cardinals. So
Fitz
Get out of
apparently.
here, AJ Green.
There's been some rumors about him retiring this offseason. So I mean, we'll see. But no, that's fair. Jake or
Who's
Frank,
your
who you
guy
got
then?
as your washed up? Oh, I already said mine.
Oh wait, yeah, you said yours. Sorry, Jake.
I have more, but they could.
I'm gonna throw out like 3 here.
No, I got one because I bet you're gonna take mine.
Yeah, let's just
Before
do
you
one.
go-
Let's just
Let
do
Jake
one.
go. Let Jake go. Let Jake.
Oh yeah, we'll let Frank throw his
It's
last
Ken.
one.
It's Kenyon.
No,
Drake.
you can go.
Kenyon Drake.
Oh, he's
Kenyon
been
Drake.
done.
He's done. He's done.
Yeah.
No one, please, no one
Yeah,
touch
so
him.
is James
Please
Conner.
do not touch.
No, I
Okay,
actually want
I'm
to hear
gonna-
this.
What else do you need to hear? The guy's a freaking jag.
What?
Yeah,
Kenyon
I mean-
Drake?
Kenyon Drake had some hype last year as the starter in Arizona. Just did absolutely nothing. Now he's the backup to Josh Jacobs. I mean, I do think they're going to split. I mean, leaning Josh Jacobs obviously, but like he's done. He's going to be a change of pace back at best, and there's not much value there.
Okay, I have a question to you and to Frank, because you two were kind of the two people who thought he's done the most. What's the lowest draft pick you're trading Kenyon Drake for?
I already traded him for a second.
Well, second
You
that's
got
about
it.
it.
You got it.
I've been
I'm
telling
surprised
you.
you got a second.
I've been telling you to sell Kenyon Drake for years. Every single Kenyon Drake post I saw on the Dynasty sub, I said sell. Every single time anyone ever mentioned Kenyon Drake to me, you want to know what the first words I said was?
So
Cut him. Sell him. He's worthless.
Cut him.
He's a waste of a roster spot. He's an average at best running back who got hyped from a handful of good games on an offense whose rushing production was carried by the quarterback.
Strong words, but I agree with them.
All right, my guys who are done. I have like 4. The first one, and I've got some young guys on here too. All right.
oh,
First
boy.
one, we saw this after the Super Bowl. Mecole Hardman. I never
Done.
really believed in you from the
Done.
beginning, but you're done. I'll
Yeah.
accept that late 3rd round pick for you, early 4th. I don't care. Next guy who's done. Who is it? I hate this one a little bit because I liked him last year, but David Johnson, you're done.
Yeah.
You're out. I'll take
Next.
the 3rd round pick. I don't care. You're done. The next one, Preston Williams. I know that there are going to be people that like Preston Williams, but for me, I made a decent amount of cash betting the under on his receptions last year. You're done. You're getting replaced. You're on a team whose number 1 need is receiver.
It's a shame with Preston because he's never been the same since his injury. He started off his rookie year good, and then last year he didn't look like the same receiver.
Okay, next one. O.J. Howard. You done. You were kind of done already, but at this point, if you're still believing, I'm out. O.J. Howard, I'm getting off the roller coaster. I will cut him if I need to. I'm just so out.
Damn.
Who else is there?
I kind of
This
like
one I'm
OJ.
on the fence about. You like OJ? See,
I mean,
that's
it
the
depends. It
exact guy I'm
depends. It
trying to
depends
sell
what
him
I
to.
could get him for. It depends what I could get him for. Like, what would you say the price is?
How about a late 3rd?
I would give an early 3rd for OJ Howard.
Sold.
I don't know. I like him.
Deals.
I don't know.
Who else is there? Honestly, Tyrod Taylor. I know he's gonna have some hype going to Houston. You're done. I would sell him easily. Like, dude, I'll get him in a little bidding war. Hey, teams that need a quarterback. How about a 3rd and a little bit of fab on the side? A little bit of fab.
I do agree with him
I'm
being
out.
a sell because I saw a report about the Texans if Watson, assuming Watson's not the quarterback this year, either through suspension or trade or whatever, they apparently are interested in potentially picking up Alex Smith to start.
Yeah, I have Tyrod in our league, and no one's been knocking on my door trying to buy him, and I really don't think I'm even getting a 3rd for him, to be honest. Like, I don't think anyone cares. But I agree, he's done.
Okay, I've got a couple more, but like this one's kind of a poor one out because we all know he's done. Todd Gurley.
Oh, I forgot about Todd Gurley.
He's
my
been
water
done,
bottle
dude.
cap.
He's been way done.
R.I.P. to my man Todd Gurley.
Jake,
I loved
Jake,
you,
don't,
man.
Don't diss Todd Gurley in front of Frank. You hit him too wrong.
Listen, dude. I love Todd Gurley. He was top 2 running backs I've ever seen play in college football. It's him and Nick Chubb.
And they were teammates.
They're just I've unbelievably talented players. So good. And my saying that I'm not a freaking doctor, I don't care about the injuries, really came to bite me in the ass a couple of years ago when I bought Todd Gurley when everyone was selling. I held firm. But R.I.P. to a great one.
Arthritis, man.
He came out as a cat guy, and that really put him in.
Yeah, arthritis is really a killer.
But we're talking about running backs now. Why don't we just move on to the next part of our segments? And that's, we're comparing the running backs this year to the running backs of 2020, and maybe some other classes if we have time. So, we have the top tier guys like Najee, Etienne, and Javonte. How do they fare compared to running backs from last year's class? What does anyone think? Anyone's thoughts? I think Frank, you're the hottest, hot take guy.
Yeah, I mean for me, I'm gonna let Frank make his point, but for me, it's not really close.
There are 2 tier 1 running backs from the past 2 classes. Very close 3. And I'll just name the 3. How about that? From my grades. The 3 are Jonathan Taylor, Javonte Williams, and J.K. Dobbins. In that order, probably for me as well as prospects. Those are the 3 running backs that I truly believe separated themselves from the pack as prospects. You can make the argument for James Robinson or Gibson just because, unforeseen circumstances and development kind of happened with them. Antonio Gibson bulked up a crap ton and completely transformed his body to play a different position basically than he was at school. And James Robinson wasn't a guy I did a film analysis on going into the rookie drafts and whatnot. I did pick him up in a couple of leagues, but I also sold him for a third in ours. So those for me are the tier 1 guys. What about for you?
See, wait, can I ask a question to you 3? Because for me, I'm personally with the belief, and again, this is different because we've seen 1 year, like the rookie years of the running backs from last year's class. For me, from last year's class, it's hard to match that. So I'll ask this question for you guys. If you guys had to rank these 4 running backs: Antonio Gibson, Cam Akers, Javonte Williams, and DeAndre Swift, where does Javonte fall in those 4?
Swift, Akers, Gibson, Javonte.
So Javonte's last.
Yeah.
Akers, Javonte, Gibson, Swift. No, Swift, Gibson. Swift, Gibson.
I have the same rankings as Jake.
I would probably do Javonte, Akers, and then... I mean, if we're comparing prospect grades, I had Swift over Gibson. Who I'd rather have now is Gibson over Swift. But that's mainly because I'm lower on Swift than consensus, easily.
So what we learned is we're all over the board there. There was no agreement, really. Just Jake and Lounis a little bit.
Now, one thing I do want to say really quickly with some of these running backs this year compared to last year is I think some of the backer end kind of running backs right now, the consensus backer end running backs from this class, are being way too heavily criticized compared to some of the running backs that came out last year. And I'm specifically looking at Trey Sermon and Michael Carter. Those are the 2 guys for me that I legitimately believe are being really slept on in this class. To me, I would not, if I had a pick, I would not let them fall outside of the early 2nd round part of a rookie draft. And I would even consider these guys as a prospect grade. We haven't seen where they got in the NFL draft, which will definitely change things. But from a prospect grade, I have them in contention for a late 1st round pick, which right now, if you ask the consensus community, they're going to say, they're going to look at you with like you got 2 heads. Because to be completely honest, when you're looking at some of these back end receivers, the fact of the matter is, when you're looking at 112, Rashad Bateman's going around there. I really like Rondale Moore, but he's going around there. I think Diami Brown, Terrace Marshall are going around there. And to be completely honest, I think that those 2 running backs are right in that conversation with him. And I'd have to have a legitimate thought about which one I would rather have. And you're gonna. I honestly think that these two running backs, mainly Trey Sermon, is gonna go a lot higher than people are anticipating. I think he's not a lock, but I predict he's going in the top 70 picks in the NFL draft. And he's going to start to rise because of that. And everyone's going to be screaming, Keyshawn Vaughn. Trey Sermon is way more talented than Keyshawn Vaughn was coming out. And I don't think you should be scared of him rising because a bunch of armchair scouts, I mean, like we are too, we're armchair scouts, but the consensus of the armchair scouts is that Trey Sermon is not even worth a top 24 selection in a rookie draft. And I think that's a little bit ridiculous.
All right.
Okay,
So,
can I just say two things quick?
yep, you go.
Just to start before I go on with the rest of this conversation, I know one of you two hates Carter way more and one of you two hates Sermon way more. Which one's which?
I'm Team Sermon over Carter.
And then Jake's the one who doesn't like Sermon.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to get those two down. Okay, Jake, I mean not Jake. Frank, I understand what you're saying, right? With those two guys being underrated. And I agree with you. I do like those two guys a lot. I think they're worth probably early seconds. Here's the thing, though. If we're comparing it to last year, who was like RB 5 and 6 in last year's running back class? Because you had, what is it? You had Taylor, Dobbins, Swift, Akers, Gibson, or Robinson. And then you at that bottom tier of 5, 6, 7, you got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Gibson, Robinson. I'm taking all three of those. Well, Robinson maybe, but like, how do those three compare to the RB 4 and 5 here with Carter and Sermon?
Okay, so this is kind of where I wanted to go off of in my hot takes, right? So, first take is, in addressing the earlier stuff, I just think Javonte Williams, I think he's my top running back from this class. I think he's behind Taylor, Swift, Akers, Dobbins, Gibson. And then I'll take him over CEH, James Robinson, whoever is left. Did I say Akers in the top? I have Akers over. Then after James Robinson and CEH, I take the ETN, all of those other guys, basically over whoever's left, essentially. Then what Frank was saying though was he's considering Trey Sermon around the high second round area, and I just have trouble with that because I truly believe. I'm not sure which one, and I can't guarantee both, but I truly believe one of Terrace Marshall and Dyami Brown will be an alpha receiver, will be a very top receiver. I just don't know which one. It's a coin flip on which one's going to be.
It's Dyami Brown. Don't worry, I got you.
so regardless, I like Trey Sermon, but I'm taking him more in the middle of the second round. So, like around 206 is where I'd probably rank him.
I think I'd rather have, from prospect grades that I've done, Dyami Brown and Rondale Moore on top of, obviously, the top two guys for me, which are Chase and Devontae Smith. Like, those receivers I will take over the Trey Sermon bunch. But from what I saw looking at things, and I'm no expert, obviously, but I have a higher grade on Sermon than I did DeAndre Swift. I think he's on a relatively similar note to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was like the consensus RB1/2, mainly because he went to the Chiefs. I mean, yeah, we can all say that we're taking Gibson now, but as a prospect, Sermon I think is way miles ahead of Gibson. Gibson had rapid development that really not a whole lot of people saw coming. I don't think anyone, even the people that loved Gibson, took him in the first round.
No one thought he'd be that good of a pure runner.
Similar story with James Robinson. I really think that Cam Akers and Sermon, I like Cam Akers a lot more, but I don't think Sermon is necessarily too far behind. And same thing with Michael Carter. And if you say that, people are going to scoff at you. And I know you guys are going to scoff at me.
Well, no, because here's the question I have for you.
But if you really look into it, it's really not that far away.
Are you comparing Akers when he came out, or Akers right now having seen his rookie year?
When he came out as a prospect. I liked Akers a ton. Akers, Dobbins, and Jonathan Taylor are the guys that, if I had one high draft pick, I had 104. Dobbins and Akers were the guys that I was deciding between. I ended up taking Akers, which I kind of regretted, but I ended up trading him for Dalvin Cook anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But aside from those three guys like Akers, Dobbins, Jonathan Taylor, and Javonte Williams in that tier, like, dude, Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, Trey Sermon, Michael Carter, like, they're for me all on a relatively similar plane. Same thing with Swift and all these other freaking guys, Edwards, Elaire. Like, they're all around there. They're all very similar. And it's ridiculous if you bring that up. Like, yeah, I agree. Last year had more good running backs, but I don't think this year is as crap as everyone's making it out to be.
I don't think it's like shitty. I just think last year was insane. And like, here's the thing. I think coming out, they're similar. Like when both classes were coming out of college. But having just seen all of the rookie years and how successful some were, and obviously we haven't seen this new class's rookie years because someone like a Carter or Sherman could ball out, and it's like, okay. But man, like the running backs last year's rookie year, like JT had the rankings listed out.
Only 2 running backs last year had a better year than Phillip Lindsay's rookie year. Cam Akers didn't even get 100 points. Like, yeah, he did well in the playoffs and whatnot, but we've seen plenty of guys do well in a playoff run.
The Phillip Lindsay of this year is James Robinson, who value-wise would still probably be like the RB6 out of last year.
I'm talking about production. We're saying that everyone's had great rookie years. Well, most of these guys didn't get above 160 points, and they had worse years than Melvin Gordon. You know, like, I understand that everyone likes him as prospect, and I'm not saying they're worthless. It's just, I think that we do need to slow our roll a little bit, and the fact that we're expecting all these guys to be around the top 10 of running backs. Like, the fact of the matter is, Aaron Jones is going to be behind most of these guys, which I find a little bit ridiculous.
Aaron Jones is a different equation now because of his contract extension. Yeah.
Even with the contract extension, he was like, just look at the startup drafts. Go on that Reddit post and look at those startup drafts. That's post-contract extension, and see where Aaron Jones goes in relation to those guys.
It is tough, though, because even though he's on his contract extension, you know you're probably only getting 2 years of Aaron Jones left, while you're likely getting 4 or more years of all these other guys. So there's that years added that's baked into the value. While I agree that Aaron Jones is a better running back, would you rather have 4 years of like RB 12 to 15 or 2 years of RB 6?
No, I agree with that, JT. I'm just saying that I think that people need to be a little bit more selective and actually really look into these players instead of just saying and going along with consensus, because I saw the same thing for 2018 where a lot of these running backs like Sony Michel and Kerryon Johnson, I understand these guys didn't have as great of seasons and all that crap, right? But they also, I just remember the arguments. Oh, they didn't have 16 games, and then you extrapolate their stats for 16 games. It's like, oh, they're insane. Like, there's a reason why extrapolating the stats in football does not work, because it is very much a week-to-week sport.
Yeah, but it is different, I say, this year, just because it was a COVID year, and you know, with all the protocols and everything, there were running backs that missed, like J.K. Dobbins, for example. He missed time due to COVID. DeAndre Swift had, like, that freak concussion. It is a different year, I feel like. I think DeAndre Swift also had COVID as well. And maybe Jonathan Taylor missed a game to being a close contact. So it's a weird year where they're not on the field, but they're not on the field for a much different reason than any other year. But I think we should move on to our last segment because we're kind of running out of time here. We're against the clock. Real quick, we're going to talk about what is the best buy for a 2022 Contenders first-round pick. In other words, like a late 2022 first. What you expect to be a late 2022 first, but with some upside in case they're not a good player. So I'm going to run through positions. I'll throw out some names here, and you guys tell me who you think the best buy is. There's a lot of names, so I don't know if I should actually throw them all out here. But like Derek Carr, Matt Ryan, Mac Jones, Kirk Cousins, Carson Wentz, Ryan Tannehill, Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones for quarterback. Are any of you guys buying that quarterback for
I love, if you're a contender and have a late first and need a QB, Ryan Tannehill.
So the caveat with Ryan Tannehill is you probably would have to give up slightly more. He's like the only one that you might have to give up slightly more, but not too much.
If it's not bad, I like it because I really like Tannehill as a fantasy quarterback, and he's not like old. Like I know, what is he, like 31?
In that range, yeah.
Somewhere,
I think
yeah.
he's
32,
32. Yeah.
32? Okay, yeah. That's still, you're still going to get years of good production out of him. So Tannehill would be my favorite buy. And I was even considering that, not recently with my situation before, like I was something like before the Eagles traded back, I was thinking as a contender, oh, what if the Eagles draft a QB? What do I do with my QB2? My go-to move as a contender was probably going to be trying to buy Tannehill. Because I think he's kind of like the cheapest really good QB you can get.
Do any of you guys feel strongly about the other QBs, or should we move on to potential running backs you could buy with the late first? All right, we'll go. Oh, go ahead, Frank.
Go ahead, Frank.
I was just gonna say I like Derek Carr. If there's someone in your league, this is definitely league dependent, but if Mac Jones is sitting there maybe early in the second round, and you can give up a contender first to pick him up as a possible quarterback, that might be all right. If he goes to San Francisco, I doubt that can happen. But let's just speak right now. Let's say, like JT thinks, San Francisco takes Justin Fields and Mac Jones falls. I think that he might be around that early second area more so than a late first. So you might be able to get that deal done. The other guy, I think the only other one is Carson Wentz. Just Carson Wentz is risky. But I think that the other things, I'm not sure you can get him for a late first. It really depends on the owner. I think right now you probably have to give more than just a late first, but I honestly have no idea.
I agree with
do
you on
guys
Mac
think
Jones.
about
If I was a contender and needed a QB too, like I really just didn't have anyone in that spot, I would trade a late first for Mac Jones.
Can you trade a late first for Carson Wentz?
I'd assume actually.
I think so.
That would be my move if I wanted a guy that potentially could last a little longer than the guys we've been mentioning outside of obviously Mac Jones.
Because you could strike gold with Carson Wentz. Like if he returns to even just
first and a
2019 form.
What if the owner wants a first and a second? Almost kind of like more on the Ryan Tannehill
So
price tag.
would
than
that
the Wentz
also
price
be
tag.
another late second?
You would assume so.
I'm probably not buying any of these guys at that price, a first and a second, even if it's late for both.
Not even Tannehill.
I think Tannehill I would. Wentz,
he's the only one
I
I'd
don't know.
consider. But even then.
Okay. Yeah, let's go on to the running backs, though.
All right, running backs, we've got Kareem Hunt, Austin Eckler. You might have to give up a little more for him. David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, you also might have to give up a little more, although with Kane and Drake signing, maybe you've got like a shaky owner. Maybe he doesn't listen to Frank. Ronald Jones, Chris Carson, A.J. Dillon, Melvin Gordon, Damian Harris. Any of these guys you're buying for a late first? I know which one Jake's going to tell you to buy.
My boy.
See, this is Jake trade propaganda. I can't believe we allowed this to happen.
This is literally not. Listen, first off, I love Kareem Hunt. I think he's worth more than that. Honestly, I think he's worth probably a late first rounder this year, rather than having to wait for a 2022 pick. But I just think he gets underrated just because people go, oh, Nick Chubb's there. Yeah, we understand that. Nick Chubb missed 4 games last year, and Kareem Hunt was running back 10. Like, okay, Nick Chubb plays those 4 games, what? He's running back 15 to 20. He's still a top 20 running back. It's hard to find running backs that are as consistent as Kareem Hunt. I just love him, and I think if you're looking for a guy that you need to plug in every week as your RB2, I don't think it's a bad move at all.
I'm probably not buying
It's
any
close.
of these guys, to be honest.
It's close. I would throw the added piece to get Eckler.
Okay, you're an Eckler believer for this year.
I love Eckler, and especially with Herbert. Every game he was healthy for last year, he went off. And I don't consider him really like a huge injury prone guy.
How much more do you think you'd have to give up on top of a contender first for Eckler?
The thing
That's
is,
contender 2022 first.
Like, realistically, if he's on a rebuilding team, could you get him for that singular first? Is there a world where that happens?
I think there is. I think there is a world that happens.
I would probably I wouldn't ask for more on top of it. Maybe just try to like sneak out a third. But like if I'm buying him, I'd throw in the third at that point.
You might have to give up like a late second, be honest. But like, in my opinion, I think the Chargers, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually went out and got another running back. I mean, I know they just got Josh Kelly, but they're a team that they've got a different coaching staff now. Austin Eckler is kind of like a niche running back. Josh Kelly's shown he can't really do a whole lot. So sorry, Josh Kelly. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go out and get their guy to try and, just kind of more cement their offense, which would hurt Eckler's value. And probably, honestly, bring it down more to that late first, maybe even early second.
The one last guy I want to talk about, and I'm not sure he's worth the late first, but I think it's worthy of discussion, is Damian Harris. Is it a potential buy low for... It's risky. It's definitely a risky move, and the Patriots are hard to trust, but he was pretty damn good last year.
Damian Harris is one of those guys where I love his talent, and if I knew he would be the starter as he should be on most normal teams in that situation, I would. But because it's the Patriots, I have zero trust in them at the running back position. Also, by the way, to people I would buy Josh Jacobs for that 2022 late first. I just don't think any Josh Jacobs owner is accepting that.
Correct.
Yeah, you'd have to give up more, in my opinion.
I was going to say,
at that price,
no one's accepting that.
More. But back on Damian Harris, with what Lounis said, I do think that makes him a good buy because people are kind of worried about the Patriots situation. They're always talking about Patriots running backs. That being said, as a Patriots fan, I still don't want to touch him because I'm still worried about that
I think
situation.
he's really talented. I think if they gave him the chance, he would be really productive.
I want to believe,
I can't trust it.
Yeah, I want to believe, but I just know I'll get hurt if I do.
So if you're a contender, and you wanted Damian Harris, what are you trying to do? Are you just going to try and swap players instead of a pick? Like
a good second.
Have him as a throw-in. He doesn't I'm not really a proponent of a 2-for-1 trade, but if I could get 2 solid prospects for one prospect that I'm shakier on, I'm trying to think of someone just top of my head, but
maybe a Rager.
I was about to say a Ruggs.
Rager's so are you saying a Rager plus? A
Rager plus a second or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a little better, I think. But I was talking more of maybe I give up Terry McLaurin for Damian Harris plus. Plus, I don't even know what the value is at that point.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. You sell into Damian Harris.
Yeah. I'm recouping value that I'm afraid I might lose. Not that I'm really shaky on Terry McLaurin.
You thought Damian Harris is worth Rager in a second?
I wouldn't do that.
I was just starting to throw crap out.
I was
just throwing stuff out there.
If you could give me a pick 108 this year plus Damian Harris and I'm a Terry McLaurin owner, I'd probably deeply consider that.
I think I would accept that.
Speaking of receivers, we
can move on. Them. All right, so this is the one that I was the most interested in. I've got a very specific guy in here that I'm buying for the late first. For that price exactly. We've got Tyler Boyd, Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Deontay Johnson, which you might have to give up more for probably, Robert Woods, Laviska Shenault also might have to give up a little more for. Same with Jerry Jeudy and Juju. Plus there's some other players like Rondale Moore for rookies, and then you've got Lockett, Thielen, Curtis Samuel. There's one specific guy I've got in here that I want to buy, so I'll just jump off and say it. I'm buying Deebo Samuel for the late first. If I could get Deebo Samuel for that first, I just think, people are kind of overhyped the Liz Frank injury, that foot injury, which did hold him back, and we were saying last year probably would hold him back for the beginning, but he did come back. He looked well, he played well. There's going to be concerns that he's the third player in the offense of Kittle, Ayuk, and Deebo, but personally, I think Deebo's over Ayuk in that depth chart. I just think he could do more than Ayuk. Ayuk's kind of, they're both similar in what their route tree stuff is. The only thing I'll say though is Deebo literally had a negative depth of target last year, average depth of target, which means they're just getting the ball into his hands and he can do whatever behind the line. He's just that kind of playmaker. So Deebo, I think, is the one that I'm buying at this price.
I would buy Deebo, but there are a couple guys I like more. Actually, Deebo's close for me.
Can you list the wide receivers again, real quick?
Okay, so we had on here Tyler Boyd, Cooper Kupp, Deebo, Deontay Johnson, Robert Woods, Shenault, Jeudy, you'd have to give more, Juju, some rookies like Rondale Moore, Lockett, Thielen, Curtis Samuel. So guys I like. I like Curtis Samuel a lot in Washington for a late first next year. He's still only, I think, 24. I like Deontay Johnson, but it would depend how much more. So how much more do you think it would take for Deontay Johnson?
Well, I think that's the weird thing with these receivers is that to any owner, like there might be owners that would be loving to sell Cooper Kupp for a late first, and then other owners that'd be like, dude, Cooper Kupp for a late first, no way. Same thing with like Tyler Boyd, like.
Dude, Tyler Lockett's on there. I would love to trade Tyler Lockett for a late first. I'm not getting that.
Yeah, I was just throwing names on here because Tyler Boyd you might not be able to get for a late first, but he's around there. I mean, you can't really be asking much more for Tyler Boyd than a late first. Like, okay, yeah, a first and a second maybe, but it's not like you're terribly far away.
I don't think you're going to get the late first and a second for Tyler Boyd, especially.
I don't think you're getting the late first for Tyler Boyd.
It's close in that it's a 2022 contender first, so it's not even this.
I think he's worth just that late first. He's right there. Same thing with Cooper Kupp. If you're a rebuilding team or a team that's looking to rebuild and you're selling Cooper Kupp, you're trying to sell him for that late first.
Cooper Kupp I would buy for that late first.
I think Cooper Kupp is a great buy for a first, especially with Matt Stafford now there. He's still a guy who gets a ton of targets. He gets open. Cooper Kupp is a guy I'm looking to buy. Jerry Jeudy is a guy that I still really like. I think the problem with Jeudy is that because you have owners that took him really highly in the draft, they're just not going to want to sell him.
That's why I didn't bring him up.
So, yeah, the receivers are definitely interesting, and if you're a team that needs a receiver and has a first to shell out for one, I think you're actually in a really good spot right now with some of the guys that you can pick up. Tight ends, on the other hand, are really weird.
Really weird.
So, I put on the list Mark Andrews, which you'd probably have to give more. Noah Fant, which I have no idea. Like, you have guys that love Fant that hate him. Same thing with Dallas Goedert. And then you kind of have the second-tier guys, Mike Gesicki, Cole Kmet, Jonnu Smith, and anyone else that's like you probably wouldn't want to offer a late first for, but you definitely could get him if you wanted to. So, any of these guys that if you really needed a tight end, you'd be looking to shell out the first for?
I think I'd do it for Goddard.
I don't think I'd be, other than Andrews, which I know you'd probably have to give up more, I don't think I'm really spending that price. To give you some background, I've been trying to trade for Noah Fant in our league, but to just give up 111 straight up, which I'm considering is pretty similar in value with next 2022's late first.
It's still more though.
It's just I'm not willing to give up that kind of price. Maybe if it was the 2022 first, I might do it. But I was trying to do kind of like a slight value change here and there to make it work, but it's just not happening, and I'm not willing to give up that price just yet. But it's close. Those are the only real guys.
Could if you offered a 2022 first, are you getting Goddard?
That's I think the real question. Would they give him up? But I would offer that because I think, especially with the Eagles trading back to 12, where they're out of the running for Chase and Pitts, I think there's a decent chance Goddard leads the Eagles in catches like the next 2 years. So he may not have the most yard, but I think he's just going to get a ton of catches, and Ertz is going to be out of there too. So that's part of why I say Goddard, like him when he's healthy.
Yeah, tight end is a tricky spot. So I think it's an interesting discussion that we'll probably have in the future too. I think this is a good place to wrap up, though. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This was episode 31 of the 3rd and 20 Dynasty Podcast. Follow us on Twitter, 3RD and 20 _ I think is our Twitter handle. 3rd and 20 on Twitter. Like, rate, review, whatever all the other people say, all the influencers. We're, essentially one of them now. We're cool guys.
Hit the like button. Yeah. Hit the bell for more.
And show up to our draft stream.
Yes,
it's going to be fun.
We're getting the plans in the work for the draft stream. It sounds like we're going to have a lot of fun stuff going on. I'm excited. All right. Thank you, everyone for listening.